Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
How's everybody doing today?
Awesome.
Great, awesome. The energy right here is a little quiet. How are y'all doing? And y'all, they're outnumbered. What's happening? How are you all doing? Yeah, getting there. Hopefully better by the time we leave after some passes, the lecture, right? Well, thank you all for coming, for being here with us today, for sharing with me a little bit about what we're going to talk about tonight. I somehow the message that gets opened up here always hits home for that very specific day, and you never cease to amaze me, Peter, every single time, because I also think that on days that we're getting ready to come to the Spiritism Center is also the day that absolutely anything that could possibly happen that week happens. And yet, we're here. We made it. So thank you all for being here. For tonight's topic, I thought we could talk a little bit about family ties and address some of the interconnections through the lens of Spiritism. So some of our sources for tonight, some of the things that we're going to be talking about will be coming from these three books right here. Is there anyone that's coming for the very first time or is relatively new to Spiritism? Look at these old timers. Everybody's already graduated and you're still coming back. I love it. Cool. So at a very basic, very high level, right, when we talk about the foundation or kind of that cornerstone of where Spiritism really, really falls, we're really talking about the fact that we are spirits incarnated here on earth, living a material life. We will have many of those lives, with the ultimate goal being to achieve spiritual evolvement, right? And we look to Jesus to be that guide that's sharing all of his lessons and teachings with us, and that'll be the thing that we use to guide our steps every part of the way there. And so we're going to be talking a little bit about some questions in the Spiritist book, as well as some passages from the Gospel according to Spiritism. But the majority of the content tonight is actually going to come from this book right here, Family Constellation. It is written both in English and Portuguese and other languages as well, but I'll mention those because that's the majority of the folks that look for it. And it was written by Franco, who, for those who don't know him, was also the same author of that book that Peter read. But he has written hundreds of books in Brazil, majority of them channeled by spirits, in this case, Joanna de Angelis. And in this particular book, she brings us a lot of aspects of family interactions, interconnectedness, and so forth. Now, before we jump into that, I want us to kind of go through what the spirits tell us about social life, living in society, before we can start to dive a little bit deeper into the family aspect of it. And so in question 766, Kardec asked the spirits, is social life founded in nature? Meaning, is it a natural part of being here and being incarnated on earth? What do y'all think? Yes? No doubts? Nobody like, I'm not sure. Everybody certain? Everybody positive about it? Yeah? Okay. Right on. Yeah, the answer was very clear. And I love when the spirits answer this way. There's no, well, maybe. It was certainly. God made human beings to live in a society. God has given human speech and other faculties they need for a social life for a purpose. And what I also love about the spirits is that, or really Kardec kind of asking the questions and kind of guiding the way here, is that the next question that he follows up is, can I live by myself? Can I live in isolation? Sure, society, being in society, it's a part of nature, but do I get to opt out of that, right? And so in this question, it's exactly what he's saying. He's saying, does absolute isolation conflict with that law of nature? Meaning, can I live in nature, right, in that society piece there that aligns with the law of nature, but do I have the option of opting out of that, right? If I were to do so, would it conflict with that law? And the answer also very clear and concise there. Yes, since human beings instinctively seek associations and all people are meant to help advance progress by helping one another. All right, so when we talk about that need to evolve, to become better, is it just for us? Is it just us getting better? No, right? It's everybody around us. And so in that journey to evolve, there's our journey and the things that are within our control, within our free will. But a big part of that journey is also assisting those along the way, both as part of our journey and as part of their journey as well, right? And so as we go a little bit further, in question 775, Kardec asked the spirits, what would be the result for society if family ties were relaxed? Meaning, if it wasn't, family ties weren't a big deal, if we didn't worry about them, we didn't care about them, didn't foster them, what would that mean for society? And the answer was very simple, very succinct, very short here. A magnification of selfishness. Because again, going back to that law of nature, we have the necessity to live in society, to foster that relationship, that rapport. And further in the Gospel according to Spiritism, in chapter 14, the spirits go a little bit further and say, there are two types of families when we're talking about this here. Families through spirit ties and families through corporeal ties. Which, of course, when we think about the corporeal ties, if we think back to the planning of the life here, sure, those are also spiritual ties. But I think it's cool to kind of see that delineation there, because we may think about just the family that's here, right, our blood, but we're also talking about the spiritual families. So whether those be families that were a part of our family in other incarnations, or even the family that we choose here, right, our friends and those around us that at times are even closer to us than sometimes family members can be, right? And it's all a part of that spiritual tie there. Because have you all run into the people that you see them for the very first time, but there's just that instant connection? Sometimes we can't even explain it, but we just get along so well with that person, being around them, and we can't even explain it sometimes. And we may also have the flip side of that, where we might have individuals in our own family, right? Those blood, those corporeal ties there, where that relationship is a little bit more challenging. And then we, at times, can even question, how is it that I can have, a friend that is perhaps more of a sister or a brother than my own brother or my own sister, and so forth, right? And we can say that about many, many relationships, I think, in our lives, or even if not in our direct lives, perhaps folks that we may know. And that's, that's why it's important that we kind of emphasize that piece there between the two types of families. And so as we continue on and start diving a little bit more towards the end of the book, Joanna starts the book with this phrase right here. She says, family is the foundation upon which society's immense building is erected. So she's really calling out that family is really that cornerstone, that foundation that not only is going to set up those spirits that are living this existence here together, but how that's going to unfold and shake up in society as well. And so what I'd love, as we talk about this topic a little bit more and discuss family a little bit more, I want us to think a little bit outside of what our traditional concept of families might be, because in some families, right, the maternal figure that a child might have could be a grandmother. The paternal figure could be an uncle, and so forth, right? There are many variations of that, but there's also the piece that for some individuals, they might look up to someone and see someone in that family figure there and not necessarily be related, right? So as we think about this, let's look at a family from the perspective of those spiritual ties that just so happen to have crossed paths in our time here on earth. And so she continues on and she says, human beings are inherently designed to live in families. Again, very in line with what the spirits told us, right? We are designed to live in society. And she takes a step further and says, not only society, but also as part of families, so as to develop sublime contents of their psyche, which lie dormant, awaiting the stimuli of life at home to be liberated and to sublimate the self. So check out how important this is. What she's saying is there are parts of what a spirit will need throughout their journey here on earth that can only really be awakened in those early moments, in those early stages, as part of the family, right? So when we put that into perspective, what she's calling out here as family really being the foundation, it's not even just a societal piece, but what it does for the spirit. And I think if, we kind of pause here for a moment, it always makes me think about little things that as a kid has always stuck with me. And sometimes, for a lot of people when I talk to about the stuff, this brings a lot back to values or things that we might have heard as we were growing up. And there's always, little things that kind of stick because it was early on in our foundation, right? We probably heard it from people that had a very a very important figure in our lives. And so, when we talk about the family really being that center, the beginning of it all there. And so this book has about 30 chapters, and let me tell you, did anybody make a New Year's resolution to read more? Nobody else? Thank you. Thanks for not leaving me by myself here. That was one of my New Year's resolutions. And if you're looking for a short, sweet book filled with knowledge, this book has 30 chapters. I only put a few of the ones that are here so that you can get a sense for what they are. But there's 30 chapters, 3 to 4 pages per chapter. So in a month, you'll walk out with a ton of knowledge. It's a really, really great book. Again, this is just some of the chapters that are there, but you can see that Joanna de Angelis in this book covers a wide range of topics. I mean, from neighbors to disturbances in the home, religious, orientation, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, but a bunch of different topics. For tonight, we're just going to cover the middle section there at a very high level, just enough to get you all really excited to hopefully read the book. So to start us off, in this first chapter here, in Family Constellation, she says, family is a school of blessings, teaching the essential duties towards a joyful life. Without it, ideals lose strength, aspirations become numb, and moral resistance is weakened. This family group, however, didn't happen by cause. It wasn't an accident because of random souls that got together. Rather, extensive planning done in the spiritual sphere before the organic rebirth of the souls with mutual commitments, be them positive or negative, in order for the necessary adjustments and ensuing progress to occur. So, based off of this here, is it an accident, the family that we're in? No, right? Is it always going to be what we think is going to be when we come down here and we're in the midst of it all? Do we ever have moments where we think, oh boy, what was I thinking? It's going to happen, right? It's okay. I mean, we're calling it out there. This is not a trip to Disney, right? We're calling out that not only this was very well planned, meaning there was intent, there was purpose behind it, but not to mention, and this is probably one of my favorite pieces, is the mutual commitments, right? So in this portion right here, we're calling out that we are in this together. We made that choice. We had something together to be able to fulfill, to fix, right? And sometimes some of those relationships might be positive relations or negative relationships, but the negative relationships are really an opportunity for us to be here course correcting that, right? And it's really neat to see in the book, Missionaries of the Light, there's a chapter in there that talks about the planning that goes into this child that's about to come back to earth, and all of the work that's done between the parents while they're asleep and their spirit is disconnected in the spiritual world, and how they're communicating with a huge group of spirits that are in charge of planning the incarnation for their son that's about to come to earth. And they talk about how this planning happens months before the child is even born, and how there's all of this planning based on past lives and what that particular family, those individuals in that family, needed to correct in order to evolve, right? So even though there might be times where we might not, we might not feel like we might be in the right situation, in the right place, right here is the peace of mind that not only we are in the right place, but that we are in the right place with the right purpose, with the right people that are going to be able to help us throughout that journey there. And so this really leads into the education and the home piece. And what Joanna de Angelis tells us, she says, home is where members know one another and where masking one's inner flaws become difficult. Hence, those imperfections are lapidated through continuous friction, which ought not to lead to indifference, hate, jealousy, or revolt. So what we're talking about here is that at home, there's no Instagram filter, right? Out there in the world, we think it's safe to say we're usually a little bit more cautious, right? At work, we might walk around eggshells a little bit sometimes. We might try to explain things a little bit more patiently. We almost watch ourselves a little bit more. But in the home, that's usually where we let our guard down, isn't it? Whether it be because we feel comfortable with those around us, or because perhaps those are the ones that are working with us to lapidate those imperfections. Because if I ask God for patience, for resilience, what am I going to get? What am I going to get? Is it going to be an Amazon box with patience labeled on it? No, right? I'm going to get individuals that are going to put that to the test. Because that's where we learn. That's where we learn, right? We start to develop ways to deal with our emotions as those emotions are happening. We start to become more patient as people test our patience and somebody says, take a deep breath. Let me help you through this, right? But it's through the challenges that we're learning, and that's what we're saying there. It's through those imperfections, right? These relationships are there to help us, to lapidate us. And so the other call out here is, although there might be conflict in those relationships, it doesn't have to lead to indifference. It doesn't have to lead to hate, right? And there are, relationships, and we hear of many cases, in fact, where, folks might live in an abusive home. And obviously that's different from what we're talking about here. And we always want to encourage people to get the support that they need, obviously. But what we're saying here, right, is the challenges that we face do not have to lead to these negative things, but instead that those challenges are nothing more than an opportunity for us to resolve the conflict, whether it be in a previous life or the challenge that we have chosen for this existence in order to advance our own spiritual growth. And she adds on and says, whoever is incapable of loving members with whom one inhabits finds it even harder to love those one does not know. Because think about it. How am I going to love someone outside of my home, the place that would be the natural place for me to even learn what that is to begin with? How am I going to put that out there if I can't even do it inside the home? Right? That's what she's saying here, is that this is where it all starts. And then she finishes off this chapter by saying, divine law states that only through love can the spirit find true fulfillment. This sentiment of love is developed in the family experience in its many facets of abnegation, affection, kindness, and tenderness. So look at the amount of opportunity that we have to practice all of these things just in the confines of our home. And if we get to perfect it within our four walls, imagine what we can put out there to the rest of the world, right? It all starts within our four walls. And then she goes on and starts to talk a little bit about, what happens when things are not, TV commercial family worthy, where the mom's spreading the butter, the kids are playing outside, there's a nice breeze. What happens when things aren't necessarily going in the way that, we would expect it to go? And she says, a family constellation is comprised of similar spirits, either attracted to one another through noble realizations of love or serious and disturbing commitments from previous lives. And so there are many passages in the Gospel according to Spiritism talking about this, basically discussing the affinity between spirits, right? And also how there are spirits that might come incarnated here because they have such a strong, affectionate bond that they choose to come out here together, or sometimes the opposite, where you have spirits that also make the choice to come here because they know that they have something that they need to fix. They know it's going to be a challenging situation, right? That's where you have the serious piece there, but they're still making the commitment to come here and fix it, which is why at times we may encounter in families complete opposites, where you might have an entire part of the family that gets along very well, and then you get that single person that does not get along with anybody in the family. But think about for a moment here the commitment that family made to come together and welcome that individual, right? The commitment that they made to work together to bring that person as part of their journey in that family. And she goes on to say, considering that the family is composed of spirits of various origins, some of which are collectors of previous debts, it is understandable that they express themselves with grumpiness, constant dissatisfaction, and aggression, or against the plans of collective understanding. Do y'all know anybody like this?
Oh, yeah.
Or is it just me? Okay. Now, for a moment, if we just pause here, how wonderful is it that we do not remember what happened in our previous life? Right? This really puts it into perspective. Now, although the majority of individuals don't remember, right, and that in itself is a gift, oftentimes that the satisfaction, whatever it is that they're kind of going through or have been going through in previous lives as part of, that mesh within the family there, can show in some of these ways here. And then she adds on and she says, this member will always be the source of problems, the complainer, the rebel. Spiritually weakened, he or she is in danger of trying to escape through the use of drugs and alcohol, and because of his or her insecurity, will start stealing as a psychological appeal to draw attention. So this is just, one of the examples that she provides, but again, speaks to how important the foundation of the family is, because by recognizing these things, by having the understanding that as a family, we have a commitment, we are able to look at that kind of behavior beyond just the behavior itself, right? We're able to look at that individual as we always should, but sometimes it's hard to, right? We're able to look at that individual as a brother and a sister in Christ that we should be assisting to the best of our abilities. And so in here, she kind of goes into, okay, what are some of the things that we can do to assist when we do have some of those disturbances, or perhaps prevent from even being able to get to that point. And this is where she starts to talk about religious orientation in the family. Now, this, I think, can be kind of a hot topic, right? Because I think there are times that people might look at this and go, well, but, the kid should decide, at which point are we, as parents or guardians kind of meddling in too much? At which point should the kid decide, and so forth? And she has some good stuff to say about this. She says, religious orientation is the parent's responsibility, who must always talk with their offspring about the divine parenthood, always merciful and loving, and for whom everything in the universe derives. Let me ask you all this. Who has kids? Lots of parents. I love it. Y'all are on the hook now. No backing out. I saw who raised your hands. When y'all had little kids, because you might have grown kids now, but when you had little kids and your kids didn't want to go to the dentist, what happened? They went to the dentist. Woo! They didn't want to go to the doctor. What happened? Why? Because it helped, right? Because it was the right thing to do at that age. Do you think that at the age that you all took your children, did they have all of the information to make the right decision for themselves in that very moment? No, right? So as loving parents, you decided to do the thing that would be beneficial for that child, right? And I'm not even saying right or wrong here, because as we go a little bit further, she says, those who believe in something, especially something of a transcendental being, effective, and or religious nature, behaves much better during life's difficult occurrences related to, for example, health or relationships than those who have no ground to sustain themselves with hope, thus being easily overcome by bitterness and suspicion. At what point here did she talk about Spiritism? It doesn't. Why do we think that? Why do we think that? There's no wrong answer. All good. Yeah? But what else? Is Spiritism the only route, the only path that will lead us to these things that she's talking about?
She's talking about living a higher
Yep.
energy, whatever you can believe in, that is there to help you. So you feel that that's always something important.
Absolutely. So, me standing in a garage, is it going to make me a car? It won't, right? Me going to whatever religious building, we could come up with several names here, is that going to make me a better person? It's going to be a resource, right? It's going to be a tool. It's going to be a guide. And that's what she's saying here, is that as parents or guardians, right, as head of families, the responsibility is to guide. It is to let the children know the divine parenthood. It is to talk about a connection with God. It is to talk about a higher being, about something greater than ourselves. It's about the faith. But at no point here she was saying you absolutely have to become a spiritist. In fact, there's a really interesting story. Many years ago, there was a lady that went to see Chico Xavier, a very famous spiritist medium in Brazil, and she stood in line for hours. She got there and she said, "Chico, I have something major I need to talk to you about." And him all worried, he said, "Well, what's going on?" She said, "Well, it's my husband. I just don't know what to do anymore." And Chico says, well, what's wrong? Is he not good with the kids? And she said, "No, he's a wonderful father. Everything I could possibly have imagined. I mean, he is amazing." And she says, "Okay, is it something not going well at work?" And she said, "No, he just got a promotion. Everything is going great." And then Chico, getting kind of uneasy now, he's like, "Well, I mean, I don't know, is he not a good husband to you? Like, what is it? And she says, no, best husband I could ever have asked for. And at this point, Sheik was like, well, please tell me, what is wrong with this man? And she says, he's not a spiritist. He doesn't like to go to the Spiritist Center. And Sheik says, he doesn't need Spiritism. And Sheik in that moment made it very clear because he was already practicing every single thing that Spiritism taught, right? Because again, it's a tool, it's a resource. For me, it has been the thing that has made sense in my life. It has been the thing that at a very young age, when I couldn't understand why it was that some people were taking trips to Disney, others had no food on their plate. Right? Spiritism provided answers. It made sense to me. It allowed me to question things and find those answers that had reasoning. And to me, it has continued to be a resource in my life. But it is okay if other people choose other resources. That's what Joanna's telling us here, is that find the thing that will allow us to reach closer to God, to follow the teachings of Christ. It just so happens that we all here have found Spiritism to be that. But it may not be that once the children are out of the home, and if not, that's okay too, but you have planted that seed, right? You have set that foundation. And the cool thing about this is, she talks about how having that religious foundation is also important for when you do face the challenges in life, because you have something to hold on to. When you do face a challenge, and you can remember that you have a loving, a merciful Father, and we understand that the challenges that we're going through are only to help us evolve and get better, it shifts our perspective in life. In fact, there's a ton of studies that talk about the success rate in patients with cancer being much higher when they have some sort of spiritual or religious belief and faith in general. You can look it up. There are many, many studies from highly prestigious universities that all speak to the power and importance of believing in something bigger than ourselves. And so the last piece that she brings us is the fulfillment in the family here. And she says, family is the primary cell of the social body, being responsible for group events in humanity. Whatever happens in the home is reflected in the whole outward community. We can never dissociate the domestic repercussions in society that is the overall result. So what this really is telling us here, right? And it doesn't take a whole lot for us to kind of come to this conclusion here, because the home is really that micro society, right? Whatever is happening at home will often lead to our reactions out into the world, both good and bad. Because when we wake up on the right side of the bed, we make coffee, we get to spend time with our loved ones, everybody's sitting down at the breakfast table, you pull out of the driveway, you're waving to all the neighbors, right? It's great. And so naturally that joy that we're feeling leaves the house with us. And it can be the same on the flip side. We're making that choice every single moment. And then she says, to educate oneself in order to better educate is the motto that should be adopted by everyone during the process of awareness of the responsibilities that concern him or her during one's carnal existence. And I love this piece right here. To better educate, I need to educate myself first. Right? It's the same thing that we talk about with at an airplane. You put your mask on first before you start to help other people. That's exactly what she's saying, is before I can start to educate others, before I can start to help out others, I need to be able to do that for myself first. And then the last piece for us here is she wraps up with saying, when people finally understand that they are spiritually interdependent, belonging to the grand universal family, tolerance and compassion will become part of their reactions, thereby providing a healthier flow for the different feelings and behaviors in existence. So this right here is a great reminder, right, that we are exactly where we ought to be, with the exact group of individuals that we ought to be. And there was a lot of planning involved. A lot of people working for the success of that individual group of people. And yes, some of those are going to be, directly related. They'll be our blood, and some others may not, right? But whenever we are going through those struggles, through those challenges, this is where it's important for us to take a moment, take a deep breath, and remember, I'm exactly where I need to be with the people that I need to be, and we're going to get through it. We hold on to that faith, we ask for the guidance, but more importantly, we also thank for the opportunity, right? Because as we saw, living in society, living in a family is a part of our incarnation here. And this is nothing more than just yet another opportunity through the trials, through the challenges, but also through the many positive things. Because through all of these ties, we get to reunite with folks that we have lived many, many incarnations ago. And we also have the opportunity to correct perhaps some of the things that we missed out on in previous lives. So thank you so much. I appreciate your attention.